Hello, my name is Caleb Corville. This is FTH 223 Hammer Fire. We're going to be using the SAR-B6 sent to us by Sonoran Desert Institute as a demonstration piece for assignment 5. First things first, I'm going to go ahead and make clear. Visually inspect. Physically inspect. And we are clear. The feed source has already been removed. Okay, so upon clearing the firearm, we found that the spring is working very well. Let's go ahead and recap that spring function. Here we go. There you go. Alright, spring looks like it's working. That's going to be one of the things that I definitely check, is that recoil spring. Making sure that it is functioning properly. Another thing that I'm going to look at is the safety, because this firearm does have a safety. It doesn't have a decocker, but here you go. I'm going to go ahead and pull on the trigger, and you can see that hammer is not dropping. Okay, now I'm going to go and take the safety off, and there you go. So the safety is functioning properly as well. And for that demonstration, I went ahead and emptied a magazine. You can see that red follower poking up. It is empty. Go ahead and lock the weapon to the rear so that you can see red follower, empty chamber, physically inspected. Okay, so for one, I'm going to go ahead and with a magazine in, I'm going to check to see if it locks back, and it does. It locks back, just as it was intended to do so. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and press in the magazine release, and it falls right out as intended, and I'm going to lightly press it into the magazine well, and it does click into place. Magazine works just fine. I'm going to go ahead and decock the firearm manually. Okay, that procedure worked. I'm going to cock the hammer back manually. That worked as well. Okay, flicking the safety on and off. Now with that, the hammer down and the safety on, the slide should not come back, right? And it doesn't. Alright, safety off, slide comes back. Those are some functions checks that I would do to inspect the safety of the firearm, or not the safety, but the health of the firearm. I'm also going to check the extraction and ejection. Okay, so I have a dummy round in, and we're going to go ahead and pull back on the slide and load the firearm with the dummy round. And there we go, we got a lock back, and we have an extraction and an ejection. That was also checking feeding and chambering as well. But the real main concern there was to just make sure that the extractor was working perfectly fine for the most part. Alright, and those are the main areas that I check. Just kind of superficially checking the health of the firearm. Wanted to make sure that that everything is working as it should. Okay, 10 learning experiences. For one, before detailed strip, organize work area and use parts bins. You can never be too careful. There are a lot of small parts in the firearm. So for 100% strip, parts bins. Before you strip, acquire every tool you need so that you don't have to leave your workstation prior to reassembly. Because you never know what's going to happen when you take your eyes off of your work with so many small parts. learned that hammer-fired pistols don't have that many more parts than striker-fired handguns. They're just slightly more complicated than striker-fired handguns. That's why striker-fired handguns are so successful. Non-threaded muzzle devices are not superior to direct thread compensators. I think the non-threaded muzzle devices, they have too much wobble, bad fitment. They work, but they feel like puke. Number 5, handgun modifications are a large portion of today's gunsmith revenue. I have found that. Didn't know that before. In the associate program, we worked with a lot of rifle type modifications and such, but now working with handguns, I'm learning that that's a large percentage of handgun or a gunsmith's workload. Speaking of modifications, without a lathe and a mill, a gunsmith will be very limited on the work they can do, and particularly talking about modifying a handgun, like for instance a slide. This slide right here, say you wanted to put a red dot back here, and we'll get further into the red dot, but you got to mill that out. Also on a lathe you can cut out a new barrel. Say you wanted to have more of a match barrel and do, cut rifling. You can do that, or even make the barrel, like make a threaded barrel, for instance. You can do that. It's very easy, especially with pistol barrels, because they are small, and you're not dragging you're not cut rifling or push buttoning a 16-inch or longer 20-inch barrel, so to say. Anyway, the SAR-B6 is more reliable than expected. Learning experience. It's a little more than I thought it was going to be. It's actually a very well-priced quality firearm. It is a clone of the CZ75. So if you ever wanted a CZ75 but you don't have the money for a CZ75, the single double action is easier to work with than I thought. I have a lot of experience with Glock pattern firearms that are striker fire, and those are double action only. So yeah, it was a surprise to get this in my hand and take it to the range and do a little bit of training with it, and come to find out it's a lot easier to work with than I thought. I learned that I prefer striker fired handguns to hammer fire. As I just said, I don't have much experience with hammer fired, mostly striker fired. So this is my first hammer fired firearm. Moving on. And we talked about this before, but one modification that I would love to do to the SAR-B6 is to add a RMR cut. I've shot out to 300 meters with iron sights. I can do it very well. However, more consistently, I can do it with a red dot or magnified optic, some sort of glass. Time it would take to complete the modification, probably an hour and a half on a good mill. Putting in the slide cut, maybe call it 2.5 hours, because you're measuring, so on and so forth. How much would it cost in material goods? Well, it's more about removing material. A mill can cost thousands of dollars. you know, so there you go. Do your own math. How much would I charge if I were to perform this modification on a customer's firearm? Probably charge anywhere from $100 to $150. It just depends on the firearm. Depends on what cut I am doing, because some optics are different from others. You know, and it depends on what kind of package I'm offering to the customer. Like, am I going to be doing like front serrations on the slide as well, whatever they're asking for, because I do plan on doing that as well with a mill. Yes, this rate does align with research that I've done online. Research I've done online. I've talked to gunsmiths as well, and yeah, everything's fine. So, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate everything. Yeah.